That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, everybody, we're just going to give folks a few more minutes to get here, take their seats. Folks are still coming in. So going to get started here in a few minutes. Ray, you got any good jokes?
I do not joke. I refuse.
Oh, John texted.
Completely
Zoom
serious.
not launching. Do you have meeting ID? All right.
Can you text John?
Can you handle that? Yeah, I don't have.
I can. I don't know if I have his phone number on me actually.
Here, I'll text you. So for everyone,
I've got it actually.
Do you really? Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So Deanne, John is. I think John has been to all of our photo nights. I think it's in the 30s or 40s. I don't know how many we've had. You know, it started in 2016, like 30 or 40 events. And John is our resident AV guru. So he has been to, like I said, everyone, and he's a fixture for our events. So we got to make sure that John gets in.
Oh yeah, that's great having someone like that on board.
Yeah. Can everybody hear us okay? Everything sound and look good?
Yeah, we should probably just go ahead and get started. And that way, like people always come in late and
yeah, they will. They
sit on the stairs. Man, I miss doing this in person, but seriously, I'm really humbled, Deanne, that you're here. Thank you, everyone who's joining us remotely from all over the place. This is ATL Photo Night, the first one of 2021, the first one of this pandemic, and it's been a year, which is hard to believe. But yeah, ATL, it's really great to be back with you, Kevin, and I'm glad we have figured out a way to make this work, and we're going to keep doing it. So if you haven't been before, ATL Photo Night's a thing we do every month. We've been doing it since 2016, and it's like a community, a meeting place. It's a conversation, water cooler, everything combined. And we invite an artist every month, to come and share their experience. And it's not just like an artist talk, because we've all been to artist talks, and they can be good sometimes, but Kevin and I really wanted to do something different with ATL Photo Night. So it's more like a two-person panel or like a late night talk show. It's like an interview. So it's us talking with Deanne or whoever the artist is about their work, and the audience is there, and we're engaging, and everyone's asking questions and participating however they want to, whenever they want. And the point of what we try to do is to investigate the creative process through conversation. That's all it is. We really want to get at what is making these artists do what they do. Why do they do it? Why are they making these decisions during their own very personal creative process? Because there's no formula for figuring out your creative process, for establishing one. Sometimes it's different every time. Sometimes people figure out their own way that they're able to sort of do it every time. But that's what we're fascinated about. And that's what we think really is helpful to hear as working artists. The majority of our audience are people who are freelance photographers, or maybe freelance designers or editors. We're running, Kevin and I do this together, and it's always free. It's always by artists and for artists. It will always be free. And we're going to continue to do this in the same way that we were before, but virtually, at least for the time being, until things calm down. But that's the ATL Photo Night sort of ethos, and quick history. But tonight, I'm going to let Kevin introduce more about our guest, Deanne Fitzmaurice.
Yes, and just to piggyback on Ray, man, it's so good to do this again. It does suck that it's on Zoom and not in person, where we can shake hands and hug and have a couple drinks and have a good time and commiserate and tell stories like we do. But yeah, great to see all of your avatars tonight, and great to see your living room, Ray, and your nice studio, Deanne. But yeah, so glad to have Deanne. And, like Ray said, we've most of the artists we've had have been from Atlanta, and we've flown a couple of people in, and to have someone from out of town is always really cool, even though it's over the internet. But Deanne, I don't know how long I've known you, several years. I used to be on the board at the Atlanta Photojournalism Seminar, and I met you through there a few years back. You were one of the speakers there, and just always been a big fan of your work, and just love what you do and how you can just tell stories in any type of photography you're doing, whether it's the Super Bowl or, you know, a hard-hitting photo essay, you know, whether it's a Pulitzer Prize winning story or whatever it is. You just do such a great job, and I can see your eye and your story, your touch on it, on everything you do. Just a big fan. So yeah, Deanne is a Pulitzer Prize winning photojournalist. She's also the co-founder of Think Tank Photo. And I'm not just saying this, I am a massive fan of Think Tank Photo products. If you,
Me too, for sure.
yeah, Ray was like, you have to get the backpack. I was like, come on, man, I already got like a good backpack. Ray's like, look, I'm telling you, it'll change your life. And I was like,
Yep.
whatever. I mean, it's an expensive backpack, but it is worth it. It is amazing.
Which
yeah,
one? Which one?
which this one with
got
all
it
the
right here.
pockets and the little thing.
Hold on.
Shapeshifter, maybe?
Oh, it's this one right here.
Oh, the shapeshifter. Yes. Okay, great.
Yeah, that's it.
Nice. Okay.
That one's amazing. You know, I have
Definitely a
my
favorite.
laptop case here. You know, I have so many Think Tank products. I know I'm fanboying out, but it's incredible stuff. And
Thank
she's
you.
also a Nikon ambassador. So what an impressive resume you have, Deanne. And yeah, just tell us a little bit about the kind of work you've done, what you do, and yeah, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. It is really an honor to be here. I'm so excited to come in and just join your community there in Atlanta. I really love what you have created there. I'm thinking, why haven't I done this in San Francisco? I mean, really, it's such a great idea, and you've really created a strong community. A lot of people are coming together through your efforts, and you know, I think it's so important to collaborate, because so many times we feel like we're the lone wolf, you know, especially as freelancers. And it's so great, like as you said, you know, we love to commiserate and, you know, share ideas, and you know, always looking for creative inspiration. So I think it's really great that you have created this community there. So congratulations to you for that. Really wonderful thing.
Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I'm real excited to join you all. And you know, hey to everyone there, thanks so much for making time to join us here on this pandemic night in January. Yeah, a little bit about me, you know, yeah, you know, just real quick, grew up in Massachusetts, moved to California, went to the Academy of Art, got a degree in photography, and started working at the San Francisco Chronicle. Worked there for quite a while. I worked there throughout the 90s, and I stayed there until 2008. And at that point, I decided that I wanted to go out and kind of spread my wings a little bit and challenge myself, and you know, try to see if I could make it as a freelancer. So, you know, kind of walked away from a, you know, really great job, something that I loved for so many years. And, you know, at the Chronicle, it was great. I had a lot of opportunities to tell the stories that mattered to me. Yeah, good collaborations with writers and fellow photographers. It was just great. So, yeah, so that's what I'm doing now. I am in this world of a freelance documentary photographer, filmmaker, working, doing editorial shoots, doing some corporate, some nonprofit, some commercial, yeah, just a kind of a wide variety of things. I've learned that it's so important to diversify. And so I'm also, you know, teaching and speaking, and, you know, so quite a variety of things, but overall, you know, keeping busy, and, you know, I put together some work to share with you tonight. And it starts from some of my early work at the Chronicle and goes all the way up through what I'm doing right now. And I wanted to share with you some projects that I've been working on, you know, throughout 2020. how do we navigate this world that we're in?
Mm-hmm.
And so, so I thought it was important to talk about that because we're all in the same boat here, navigating this pandemic and figuring out how do we keep the creative juices flowing, and staying safe. And so I'll share with you several personal projects that I've been working on throughout 2020 up until this point.
All right. Well, we are getting ready to go here, and sorry, I keep going ahead in the slideshow here. I'm a newbie on screen sharing, so you'll have to forgive me. Before we get started, I did want to say to follow us on all our social channels, which they're all at ATL Photo Night. And that's the extent of our announcements. We are going to jump right in. Yeah, Deanne, we're really excited to see your work tonight. And of course, I've had a sneak peek at a lot of it, putting the slideshow together. And I really like how you've been able to tie we have 17 images, and it's like, it's so crazy to put a career's worth of work into 17 images. And you've done that really well. So yeah, let's just jump right in. And we're going to start with this image here that we've shared on our social channels. And it's just, we've all seen pictures through the window, like, that's a common thing, but this one is so different. And so I just love the layering and what you've done with this image. Tell us a little bit about, how you got this, what story this was a part of.
Yeah, this was a photo that I shot on a story for the Chronicle. And it was a photograph that really, where I felt like I was really starting to figure out layering and how important layering is to my photography. Mm-hmm. And I try to incorporate layering into everything I do, because I feel like we've got this rectangle that we're working with, and we're trying to tell a story. And, one way I think of it is kind of, making it deep with layers of, storytelling layers, really. So I was in Wyoming, and it was a story about mineral rights. So if a rancher finds oil on their land, under their land, who owns it? Is it owned by the rancher, or is it owned by the government? So it was about that controversy. And so I went out to Wyoming, and I spent a day with this rancher who was part of the story. And I spent the entire day with him, as he was doing a cattle drive and everything. And, it's such an important lesson in the way I work. I believe in just not giving up, just keep going at it. There's got to be a better photo here. So I worked really hard throughout the day, trying to just always think about, how can I make this different? I don't want it to be a guy on a horse. How can I make this above and beyond that? So I kept following, him as he went through his day. At the end of the day, I had to leave. I had a flight to catch. So I, said goodbye. I hopped in my rental car, and I was getting ready to drive away. And I looked in my rear view mirror, and this is what I saw.
Oh, this is your car.
This is my rental car. Yep.
Ah, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And so I saw this, and I went, you know what? That is that special kind of picture I've been looking for all day. So I stopped my car, jumped in the back seat with my camera, and just waited till they caught up to me and shot this photo. So it was really what I saw through my rear view window as I was leaving, as my rear view mirror of my back window.
Wow, that is so cool. I just imagined that you were in, not knowing anything about the photograph, that you were like in the back seat, like being driven around as part of the story, and you were like waiting on what I mean? But to know that it's your own car, like you stop to make it happen. That's so cool. And you're so right. I mean, I've been in situations where you just have to keep pushing and pushing, and you like, you've got something, but you don't have like something really good and really nice, and so just that drive to keep going and going, it really does pay off sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't, but when it
Absolutely. Does. Yeah, I always feel like there's something better. And I think that we have to have that drive not
Mhm.
just being satisfied with what we got.
Yeah.
Sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes there's some luck involved. But I think as photographers, we just have to keep trying, keep looking and,
Mhm.
what is here that I'm missing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you nailed it on this one. Uh, really good job. We're going to go to this next photo. We're jumping subject matters pretty quickly here. And before we get
This
started
is the
on,
one. Oh, go ahead.
but yeah, I was going to say Ray has got a pretty cool story about this photo, Deanne.
Really? Let's
It's
hear.
not as cool as your picture or your story of having made it, but I have this photograph hanging on the wall in my office right now. It's like right beside me. I went to when I was in college. I did this. Have you ever heard of the Hearst Journalism Awards?
Of course, yes.
I'm sure you have. They have it in San Francisco. And when you are a college photographer studying journalism, you may or may not participate in this Hearst Journalism Awards, but I did several times and was a finalist. And when you're a finalist, you go to San Francisco. There's this whole like 3-day shootout where you're competing with against other people. And in 2006, the last year I went, they gave us, everyone who made it, gifts, and it was a series. I think we each got 3 signed. I don't know if you remember doing this, but signed pictures from the winning Pulitzer Prize finalists from that year. So I got, one of the prints was yours, and I didn't know you at the time. I didn't know, this. I'm like a kid in college. This is like the most amazing gift ever. One of them was a Todd Heisler print from his story when he was at the Rocky Mountain News. But so I had this photograph framed on my wall beside me, and so it's very cool to meet you in person and just to share with you that little bit of like anecdote, how your pictures can affect different people in a lot of different ways. And you would have never known, like when you, that's what's amazing about being a photographer, the storytelling potential on so many different levels that you will never even grasp. Like the amount that it affected me is minuscule compared to like what the story has done for this boy's family, maybe, or other people, other Iraqis. But the picture obviously is, it's incredibly moving, and I don't want to talk anymore. I really want to hear you tell us about, this is a big deal. You won a Pulitzer Prize for this story. So we'd love to hear about, what that's like and about the story.
Thank you. I love that anecdote. That's wonderful. I can't believe you have this photo on your wall. That's amazing. And congratulations, because I know that first one is really competitive. So congratulations on that. Yeah, this is a story that I started in 2003. This little Iraqi boy, Salah Khalaf, came to America for medical treatment after getting blown up by a bomb. He picked up what he thought was a ball, and it turned out to be a bomb. It exploded, and he lost his eye, his hand, most of the fingers on his other hand. His abdomen was blown open. And he came through an incredible series of circumstances. He was airlifted to America, where a doctor there agreed to take him in and take care of him. It's a really long and involved story. So it's the most, I feel like it's the most significant work that I've done, where I had to put everything I know about the human experience and about the photographic experience into this project. It involved trust, it involved relationship, it involved compassion and empathy, it involved dignity. There was just so much involved. And, and how do you, a lot of my work over the years is about relationship. It's about rapport, and it's about making that human connection. And it was difficult to do in this case because we didn't speak the same language. He speaks or spoke Arabic, he now speaks English. And so I just started documenting his story, deep dive, making a connection, getting access, building trust, and just photographing it in a way that it showed his dignity, and showed this story about a child of war, how war can affect a family. And so I took it really seriously, and I just, tried to be, just go into it with an open heart and just let my camera, capture these moments. So I documented his story, just the challenges, the surgeries, the recovery, documented it pretty in depth for over a year. And then it was awarded the Pulitzer in 2005. I have stayed in touch with Salah since then. As a matter of
Wow.
fact, I had a little social distance meeting with him. I didn't see him at all last year, and we were texting, and I said, "Hey, Salah, I miss you. What are you doing?" And so anyways, we met at a park about 3 weeks ago, and
Wow.
with
Wow.
our masks and socially distant, and he's 24 now.
Wow.
And I've been documenting his story all this time. And, yeah, it's just been, really meaningful to me. A big thing was seeing what these photographs did,
Mhm.
how they so much came to them through these photographs. They were given asylum. The rest of the family was able to come and join them in America. I went to Iraq, to the border to follow the journey of the mom coming back to meet Salah. Um, so they got that asylum to stay in America. There was a lot of support that came out from the community. So a lot of good came from this, but it's Salah's life, and I've been there kind of along the way, and you know, in the beginning, I was really approaching it. I was working at the paper, and I was approaching it as a journalist, 100%. But more recently, I've gone into a little bit more of a role of an activist, where I've been able to help him get prosthetics,
Mm.
to just some different things that I've been able to kind of help him with. So, and that just has felt like the right thing to do.
Yeah. You have to follow your heart on those things. I mean, there's a time to be a journalist and there's a time to be, a human. I mean, not to say that a journalist isn't a human, but, there can be such a big wall, when you're a journalist, like no help, nothing that changes the story, and had you done any of that when you were working on this story back then, it would have totally changed the outcome of the story. Of course it would anyway, but we had a couple of questions. Dalen asked, how long, I know that you're still working on it, obviously, but how long did you work on this project? So I guess that would be just like, for the time, for the story, for the paper, right?
Right, right. Salah was injured. The war started, the Iraq War, it started in March of 2003. Salah was injured in October of 2003, came to America the next month, and I picked up the story then. It was like October, November of 2003. I followed his story all the way through 2004.
Okay.
So a little over a year, I had followed him. And then that was the body of work that became the Pulitzer winner.
Okay.
After that, I've just continued following it, following his story on my own.
I got you. And another quick question. This is from Mandy Gerard. These are beautiful. Thanks for sharing. Do you capture these photos and the stories, or does someone else write the stories that accompany the images?
Somebody else writes the story. In this case, a wonderful writer, Meredith May, she wrote the story. Just beautiful, heartfelt, deep, deep story about Salah's journey. She just did an amazing job. And it was just so great to be able to collaborate with someone like that, because there are times in the story where it gets hard. either emotionally or whatever. And having someone there by your side, to kind of pick you up when you need it, or, just to keep the motivation going, to keep things moving forward, it's really valuable. So a lot of newspapers work like that, where the writers work separately from the photographers. Magazines generally like that. So yes, in this case, Meredith's story added so much depth and nuance to this photo story.
Real quick before we move on, I just have to ask, this is out of pure personal curiosity, is like, you're the first Pulitzer winner we've had for Photo Night. And what was that feeling like when you got the call or the announcement? Or, I mean, that just had to be, because this is like, that's the pinnacle. That's the award that every journalist, dreams about when they first start their career. So I just wanted to ask you, what that feeling was like when you found out.
Well, first of all, I found out that I was a finalist because sometimes it gets leaked out, and it got leaked out. I think there was a publication, I don't know if they're still going, but it was Editor and Publisher. And they put out there who the finalists were. And it was my work along with the work of two other photographers. And when I didn't even know it, another photographer I know reached out to me and said, "Hey, Deanne, did you know that you're a finalist Pulitzer?" And I said, "No, I did not know that." I said, "Oh, you're joking, of course." But, he pointed me to it. And then I thought, there was no way. It's, I've never thought of, my work ever reaching to that pinnacle. But the day it was announced, I was supposed to be off that day from the Chronicle. It just fell on my day off. And my editor said, "You should really come in." And I said, "Well, I don't want to come in. It's like embarrassing. It's, I'm sure one of the other two are going to, win this award. I don't want to be standing around." And they said, no, you should really come in. Anyway, it was announced in the newsroom, and,
So cool.
But the thing that really matters is that this work, it just validated this work in such a big way that people resonated with it so much. And this, it brought a lot of attention to a story about what war can do to a child. And, to be able to be part of that conversation is so powerful.
Yeah, just like the Napalm Girl photograph, right?
Exactly.
Another Pulitzer winning photograph.
Exactly. Nick Utt's photo, that one, that photo affected the outcome of the Vietnam War. It had a big impact in ending the war. It's
incredible. There was a lot in the news about that. There was an anniversary of that or something recently in the last week or so.
Yeah, but what happened is Nick received an award, a Freedom Medal of the Arts. So he went there and received that award, and he wrote a story about it, why he chose to accept this award at this moment in time. And it's in Newsweek. It ran about a week ago.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
All right. I'll have to check that out. Yeah. Nick also, he's incredible photographer. And we're going to move right along here to our next slide. And this is part of another heavy-hitting story that you worked on about sex trafficking, correct?
Exactly. Yeah. So, well, coincidentally, this is also with the same writer, Meredith May, that I had worked on the other story with, the Salah story. I think, you just gravitate towards writers that you like working with. You're drawn to the same stories, and you kind of have the same kind of way of looking at the world, I think. So we had found out that there were young women being held against their will at massage parlors in San Francisco. Wow. And we just said, "What? You got to be kidding me. This is happening here in San Francisco." And so we started looking into it, and Meredith did some great reporting. And we found this one woman who was willing to tell us her story. She was just, she was getting out of it. And she told us her story of what happened, of how she got caught up in this. And it was just this horrible situation of being tricked and being threatened. Oh, just horrible. But she came from Korea, and it was her journey of how she got to America. And, she was told that it was for one thing, it was for something else, and just a lot of deception along the way. But she shared that story with us, but she didn't want to be photographed. So these are things, there are stories that are important stories, but really hard to show. So how do you photograph that story?
Mm-hmm.
One, it's already happened. So for the writer, it's, you can recreate it, not recreate it, but, you can go through her words and describe what has happened. But for a photographer, you have to be there. So what I did is, she didn't want to be recognized. And I said, well, can I photograph you in a way that you're not recognized? And she said, yes, I trust you to do that. So having those restrictions forced me to come up with a creative image like this. I couldn't show her identity. Of course, I showed her this and made sure she was comfortable with it, that she felt like, it wasn't going to cause her any problems showing her identity. But sometimes when you have restrictions, it forces you to be more creative. And, and I think, I should just put these restrictions on myself all the time. So I don't photograph in an obvious way. So I, just challenge myself to think outside the box. So, so I photographed her, and then Meredith and I ended up going to Korea, and we followed the footsteps of her journey. And that is what the next picture is. This was in Korea, and there's this area where, women are, it's kind of like a sex trade area. So we went there, and it was so hard because so much of my work has become about building relationships and about building rapport.
Yep.
And in this case, I wasn't able to. And it was really frustrating to me. I mean, the way I would have loved to have done this is gone and talked to these women and found out, how they feel, what they were thinking. But it was just too dangerous for them. So anyway, just challenges, a lot of challenges telling this story. I felt like it was an important story, but I feel like I just kind of touched the surface on telling this story.
Well, it's such an important story to tell, and it's obviously exploded in the news over the past few years, and people are just flabbergasted that this is happening right under their noses. And I know in Atlanta, when we had the Super Bowl here, that was a huge story that, whenever there's a huge event like that, the sex trafficking follows it, and so, I can imagine how frustrating it would be to not, as a photojournalist, you've built your career with rapport and getting inside and telling those stories, to do that from the outside, literally the outside here looking in, but you're right, you have to work within the constraints that you're given, right? And to tell the story is more important, even if it's not the best way, than to not tell it at all, right? So
absolutely, yeah, that's 100% true.
Yeah. And this was for the Chronicle as well, right?
Yes, yep.
Well, we are going to move along here. I know it's so crazy to jump from like such a heavy thing to be like, all right, next slide.
It's kind of like, the life of a photojournalist. You go from,
that's so true, yeah.
you'll photograph, like the ballet, and the next, you're photographing this hard hitting story. So
you leave a crime scene and go to the fair.
Well said.
And so here we go. We're looking at a photo. I think you worked pretty hard to get access for this, for Barry Bonds.
Barry Bonds, yeah. I kind of forgot about this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's actually kind of resurfacing. He was in the local news yesterday. Just about whether he's going to make it into the Hall of Fame or not. So yeah. So this story, I was working as a general assignment photographer at the Chronicle, and part of what I was doing, besides these heavy hitting stories and cultural stories, just a wide variety of things, I was also shooting a fair amount of sports. And we had some great teams in the Bay Area at the time. I was doing 49er games, Raiders games, just all the different sports, and being able to refine my craft as a sports photographer, figuring out how to capture the moment and tell these stories. But also, as I was doing that, I decided I really want to tell a story here. What is the story of the athlete behind the scenes? For example, Barry Bonds, he was breaking all kinds of records, all the home run records, setting all these milestones. And I thought, who is this guy that I'm photographing? He puts up a wall around him. He's really difficult to photograph, doesn't want, to be around photographers or the media. And so I thought, okay, maybe I can try to do a personal story about him and figure out who he is. So I went to the Giants and asked them, and they just laughed and they said, there is no way Barry is going to agree to that. Try his agent. So I went to his agent and I asked, I said, I'd like to do a kind of behind the scenes story on Barry Bonds. His fans want to know who he is. And the agent said, there's no way that's going to happen. So I was kind of going through the regular channels and just, having the door slammed in my face. It wasn't going to happen. So I end up going to spring training. Barry shows up and he sat down on the field. He kind of reclined on the field. I'm thinking, that's different. So I had my long lens and I swung the lens to photograph him. And he glared at me like he was furious with me for taking his photo, even though it was like, this public event. And I thought, okay, now what am I going to do? He's intimidating me and I need to get these photos for my editor. So I just went walking up to him and I have no idea where this came from. But I said, I was like standing over him and I was like, so Barry, do you have a problem with me photographing you?
Wow.
Yeah, I got to tell you, he was intimidating in a big way, but somehow I got this courage. And, so I said, do you have a problem with me photographing you? But then I said, and if so, are there some boundaries that I should know about?
Are there some what? Some boundaries?
Are there some boundaries that I should know about? And so he, paused, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, oh, geez, I might have blown it, because he could just say to me, I have a real problem, don't photograph me. And then what am I going to do? I've given him the option and I have editors waiting for photos. So he said, he paused for a minute. He said, no, I don't have a problem. From that moment forward, I had broken through this wall he puts up around him and shown that I wasn't intimidated by him. I actually was, but I pretended I wasn't. And he said, I said, no, I don't have a problem. Who are you shooting for? What's your name? I told him. And so from that moment forward, I was able to talk to him in a way that he wouldn't talk to other people, just small talk most of the time. But at one point I said, Barry, I want to photograph you behind the scenes. Your fans want to know who you are. And he let me into his world. And I was able to start, I went to his home, photographed him with his wife and his daughter, and, just documenting his life, trying to capture moments to tell a story about who he is as a person, going to the chiropractor with him, just like behind the scenes stuff. And I found that really interesting. Just kind of in terms of a sociology aspect or psychology aspect, it's like, what makes him tick? I want to understand. But once I got to know him, I found out, like, why does he put this wall up around him? He's actually a decent guy.
Yeah.
But then I started to, I got a call from Sports Illustrated. Hey, we saw this work that you've done for the Chronicle. We'd like you to come shoot for us. Now, at the time, I was on staff at the Chronicle, but having a major publication like Sports Illustrated call me, it was like, and I had to say no. I can't. I'm on staff at the Chronicle. But a few years later, when I left, I reached back out to Sports Illustrated, and that opened so many doors by doing this work with Bonds, because I was doing something different. Other people weren't doing this. And so that's kind of the big point with this picture is just about taking a chance and doing something differently so that you get access that, access, or you're just telling a different story than other people are telling. And
you can see it in the picture too, in the picture itself, you have done something different by, you're not up there with everyone else. I imagine maybe, not many people have the access that you had to be in the dugout, so it makes your picture, the only one that exists like it immediately, because you're in a different position.
Yeah, and I felt like it's a more storytelling picture than I would have got from the other side. It shows that this was his last game as a San Francisco Giant.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So,
well,
yeah.
Let me ask you about, you mentioned, this shooting for Sports Illustrated after you left, and we can maybe go through some images as you answer this next question, but I'm curious, how did your career as a photojournalist prepare you or help you for the sort of post-staff career that you had or have, where you kind of are forced to, and you wanted to as well, you said, sort of branch out more and do more than just what you were doing. So you're shooting for commercial stuff, shooting for other publications. Did that sort of well-roundedness, has it helped you, you think? And is it hard to transition to like the sort of commercial atmosphere?
Are you ready for the next photograph though? All right, I'm gonna leave that. Go ahead. You can answer the question now.
Let's see. The work that I did as a kind of everyday photojournalist, as a staff photographer for the Chronicle, absolutely prepared me for the next step that I took. And it's because during that time, I learned how to tell a visual story. I learned how to tell a story in a single image and how to tell a story in multiple images. It was just, I was doing it every day, and it just became part of my DNA and what I cared about so much. So it did prepare me for it. There were a lot of challenges though. I left in 2008, and that was a tough time because, the economy was crashing at that time, and kind of bad time to try to go out, leave a staff job and try to make it as a freelancer. But it was good. I just loved it because it was like, every day was a new challenge. And how do I do this? What's the life I want to set up for myself here? What do I want to be photographing? And just learning how to, one part that was really hard was just marketing myself, because as a photojournalist at the paper, that was the last thing I wanted to do. I also on radar. It's not about me, it's about the photography. Then all of a sudden it's like, okay, you have to start doing the social media and talking about, how great you are. It's like, oh my God, this is so awkward. Ugh.
Yeah, it's a necessary evil, isn't it? When you're freelance, you have to sort of brag about yourself. I want to quickly go back to your images when you were in Bangkok. The two pictures. The second picture it was Bangkok. Was that right? Or
it was actually Busan.
Okay.
Korea.
So the question from Dalen is, how did being a woman affect your perspective of telling this story? And especially a story that is obviously, there's a lot of sensitivity around it. You're dealing with sex workers, things that may or may not be criminal or illegal. Obviously, these women are being exploited. And Dalen brings up the recent allegations against David Allen Harvey. He's obviously not the only one, but a lot has come up about his work recently dealing with sex workers in other places. So the question is generally, how do you navigate delicate scenarios like that?
Yeah, well, I think being a woman absolutely helps in sensitive situations like this. And, it was really, Meredith and I had to build rapport with, Yumi, the woman who was in the first photo. We had to gain her trust. And I think it might have been harder to do if we weren't women.
Sure, of course, yeah.
Possible, but I think that helped.
Yeah.
And, we were able to, when we traveled throughout South Korea, a lot more doors were open to us to come in and talk. There were a lot of things that we couldn't photograph, which was challenging, but, people let us into their, intimate stories and shared with us what had happened. So I think being a woman absolutely helped.
Awesome.
Well, we are going to, and we've got one more question for you. We're gonna save till the end, but it's got to do with, as freelancers, you don't have a publication backing you. It's hard to gain access and be like, hey, when you're with the Chronicle, it's easy or easier than it might be to, hey, I'm Deanne, I'm a freelancer, because so many people are freelance. They could think you're a blogger and whatever.
Yeah.
And it's hard to,
yeah, especially when it comes to credentials and things like that, for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, something to think about. Well, hopefully we can answer that at the end. I just want to.
Well, I can do it really quickly, and it's just, because I do that a lot. I'll reach out to someone, and because a lot of times I'm working on personal projects, and I don't have anyone behind me yet. Eventually, I hope to get my projects published, but when I first reach out and start working on it, I don't have the backing of the publication. I can't say that I do when I reach out to someone, but I just try to be really honest, and I just say, I'm really interested in what you're doing. Here's my website. Here's some stories I've done in the past, and I think if you come across as sincere like that, it carries a lot of weight, and a lot of doors will open.
Yeah, I think that's great. William Albert Allard, that's how you pronounce his name, right? Yeah, he had that photograph of the Amish kid holding the rabbit. Do you remember that photograph? It ran in Nat Geo, and they sent him out there. He was like 21 or something, or just a young kid, and they were like, "There's no way he's going to gain access to the Amish community." And he was just very honest and upfront and sincere, and was like, "Look, I really care about what I'm doing. I am going to do as best a job as I can. I understand if you don't want me to do this, but it's going to be worth it because I do good work." I mean, something like that, obviously not verbatim, but they let him in, like he got his foot in the door doing that. And I think that's such a great lesson on just being honest and not trying to, not purposefully deceive, but it's easy to say, oh, it's going to run here and it's going to run there. And you have no idea, when you're doing
Right. Yeah. I think, when I approached bonds, that was the situation. Because previously, I think I said what I thought people wanted to hear. In that moment with bonds, it's like, he's intimidating me. He's making me really uncomfortable. I am going to say exactly what I think, and I'm going to speak my heart. And from that point forward, I just learned about being honest. And that's the way I've approached everything. When I tried to get access to the Salah story, the Iraqi boy, I just spoke from my heart. And I said, I think that people need to see, I said this to his dad. I said, I think people need to see what happened to your son.
Yeah.
And just like honest, not filtered at all. Yeah. And to me, that has just been the way I've operated. And people sense your sincerity, and it really opens a lot of doors.
It's true. So true.
Well, you were being honest when you photographed this guy with the fountain coming out from behind. You have to tell us how this came about.
This is there's not a big story behind this, but it's just basically street photography, and just training my eye to see patterns and to see juxtapositions.
Yeah.
And it was just like street photography. I'm walking through this park in Paris. I've got one body, one lens, and just walking along, and of course, how can you be in Paris walking along and not think of, Cartier-Bresson and all the, wonderful people that have come before us. And, yeah, I'm going to walk around with one camera and just see what I see. And, I walked past this guy and I just happened to look over and see this fountain and just this juxtaposition. It was like, oh boy. It's like, how can I not photograph this? So, I took a couple steps back, crouched down a little bit, boom.
It's a nice touch to have the map of Paris.
Yeah, that's funny.
A layer, right?
Yeah. I've also heard, I don't know who said it, but speaking of layering, they build frames from pictures from the back to the front.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So,
I think sometimes the background is as important as the foreground.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Mm-hmm.
Without question. Yeah.
Moving on here. I don't know anything about this photograph, but like I told you yesterday, I love this photograph. I mean, so many photos are taken on train tracks, and I hate 99% of them. And because it's so cliche, right? I mean, it's like a senior photo or something, but this one is amazing. It's beautiful hues and colors, and the light is just right on it. And tell us a little bit about this one.
Yeah, so this is a project that came to me. Somebody reached out to me out of the blue. It's almost like every single job or project that comes to me, you trace back to a personal connection. So little of it is done through a cold call or anything, and this was someone referred me to someone else. And, but it always stems back to a connection or a personal contact. It's, there's just something about that personal relationship. So I got this call and it's like, hey, Deanne, we are a nonprofit and we're looking to commission a photographer to travel around the United States, photographing women who work in transportation infrastructure. They work in trains, building trains and buses and, all the electricians and welders and everything. There is such a small percentage of the population that are of the workers in this realm that are women. It's like 4%. And these are really good jobs. These are great benefits, great pay. And so they wanted to bring attention to the small number of women in this field and, let other people know about this. And so it was a great project. The people I worked with, we talked about, okay, how do we approach this? And we came up with the idea of modern day Rosie the Riveters, women workers from World War II that had gone to work on the planes and things when the guys had gone off to war. So I thought, okay, how do I do this? Because it's really a photo essay and it's a series of portraits. I hadn't been doing a lot of portraiture. Of course, you get portraits assignments come along, but I didn't feel like it was really one of my specialties. But I thought, okay, this is a great chance to really work on that craft of making a great portrait series to tell the story. So I was able to bring my assistant along and we traveled around. So this particular photograph of Stacy Corcoran was done in Illinois. She's an electrician. And we were originally supposed to be able to get into the factory to photograph her. Mm-hmm. But there was, sometimes it became complicated because the owners of the factory would say, no, we don't think we want to do this. Yeah. So they backed out at the last minute, and that happens as a photographer. You're there, you're on location, you've got everything planned and ready to go. And all of a sudden the plan changes. So now what do we do? So I thought, okay, got to come up with something. So, okay, she works on trains. She's an electrician driving around. I had like an hour and I see these railroad tracks and I said, okay, that says trains. Let's just work with this. And then the rain comes in and like it started raining. And I'm thinking, oh no, this is terrible. But it actually turned out great because we got, these clouds coming in, and the train tracks have this nice glisten on them. So, so my assistant, he is holding a light. He has a pro photo light with an umbrella, single light, and he's holding that up, to the right. And yeah, so, the rain was coming down, and and just shot this. I kind of underexposed the background a little bit to make it a little more moody. And yeah, I was really happy the way it came out. And, sometimes it's like, you think it's the worst thing in the world, and it turns out to be the best thing.
Well,
it's a good example of the background making this picture even better than it would have been. Imagine if it was just like a clear sky and just sun right overhead. It would have been, would have been frustrating.
Exactly. And it was midday. It was like,
it was,
12 or 1 o'clock. So the light would have been terrible.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, this was like noon?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow. That's incredible. Yeah. And, you're training, working in a newspaper, you have to walk into a situation in 10 minutes, figure out how to make a portrait, on the spot. So that kind of training, I know, helps you out tremendously in a situation where you've got to just start, like completely find something different, and not go with the plan you had.
Exactly. And we'd have to show up a lot of times, we'd have like, an actor or a musician, or some celebrity come to town. They go to a hotel in town, and you have to walk into the hotel room and make a great picture out of them. And I actually, I did a post on my Instagram and Facebook just yesterday about photographing Larry King.
Oh, yeah.
He passed away last week. And I was remembering the portrait I did of him. I show up at his hotel room, knock on the door, and he appears in his bathrobe, and then, is waiting for me to photograph him, and he's in his bathrobe.
Wow.
It was like the craziest thing ever. So I wrote a story about it on my Instagram if anyone wants to see that.
Oh, cool.
That's awesome. We're gonna move along here. We might have to move a little quicker through these last. We're about halfway.
Let's do this, Kevin. Let's because I want to get. I know you included some like really recent stuff from this year, Deanne. Maybe we can go through a few of these next few ones while I ask you a question, and tell us when we get to the newer stuff. But so Kevin, if you want to maybe click through after a few minutes of each. But my question is about Deanne. Is what is the makeup of your freelance work now? Like, are you, and also, are you putting energy into trying to get certain things, or are you kind of the type of person who just sort of lets the different things come in, and then just kind of willing to do it all?
Kind of a combination, but last year, 2020, has been such a crazy year that I've just put a lot more energy into personal projects over the last year. And I will show some of those. Last year, was just like, we had to really think differently about things, but it's also giving me time to, reassess and think, okay, what do I want to spend time working on? What do I want to be photographing? And, and thinking about it. And, I am thinking about, I probably should start to reach out to certain clients that I really want to work with and use this time to do that. I'm just like, I've got like a ridiculous amount of energy, and I just, always.
That's not a bad thing when you're freelance, is it?
Right. So, I feel like I'm working all the time, but a lot of it is not shooting. It's just like all the other stuff, working on my website and, just
of course,
social, everything that goes around it. But I love it. It doesn't feel like work. It's just, I'm passionate about it.
Well, can we talk a little bit about National Geographic? And obviously, if you're at all interested in photography as a kid or as a younger person, a lot of us think National Geographic, that's it, that's the pinnacle. And you work with the National Geographic, what's it, Coalition? Image Coalition. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, National Geographic Image Collection. It used to be called National Geographic Creative, but it's the kind of mostly the archival branch of National Geographic. It's, you know, where they do licensing, they license your images. So it's like a stock agency, really. But you have to have, you know, been published, you know, somehow in National Geographic to be part of it. And, you know, they're going through a lot of changes, you know, being recently bought by Walt Disney and, or, you know, Disney Corp, I guess. And, but anyways, you know, it's just, I think they're just doing the best storytelling at National Geographic, and, you know, to be affiliated with them in any way, I have like great respect for the editors there, and, you know, the work that they're producing.
Yeah. Excellent.
Well, we're going to get back to a couple of these images. I thumbed through a couple here, Deanne. We're going to go back. We had a couple from Cuba, and we had, you know, these wonderful goats in the trees. This, you know, you said there's not a big story to this other than just making a really cool, fun photograph. And
Exactly.
how often do you see goats in a tree, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, this was in Morocco. And yeah, it's really just about humor. I think whenever we can bring humor into a photograph, it's great. You know, different ways to engage with our audience. But, you know, I was in Morocco and I heard that there were some goats in trees. So I had my eye out for it. And, you know, I saw it and I learned there's, you know, I kind of was trying to learn everything I could about it. And there have been a couple stories in the New York Times about why they do this. So this is an argan tree, and there is an argan nut that the goats like. And this is the nut from which they make Moroccan oil for hair and skin. And so the goats go up there to get these nuts. And, you know, yeah, so there's a whole story about it in the New York Times about, you know, how like when they're little, their keepers kind of help them get up there, then they learn to do it. And it was just such a surreal thing to see goats in a tree. And it's just funny. And, you know, I think anytime we can, you know, bring a smile to someone's face, it's a good thing.
Yeah, this is one of those questions. I mean, those photos that has more questions than answers, which I think is always a good end result, right?
Very, very true. Yeah.
And we're going to move on to a couple of images of yours from Cuba. And especially this one is just like layering all day long. And of course, I mean, you know, I haven't been to Cuba, but everything I see out of there is so beautiful. It must be a dream to photograph there.
Absolutely. I absolutely love Cuba. It's a photographer's paradise, really. I mean, it's just so colorful and people are wonderful. My lesson with, I put in these 2 Cuba photos here, and, you know, it's like a creative reminder. You know, I had been walking around Havana all day looking for photos, you know, just like traveling light, doing some street photography, photographing, going, oh, yeah, that's all right. That's okay. And then it's like, okay, it's hot. I'm tired. I'm going to go sit in this cafe. So I plop down in a couch and, you know, get something cold to drink. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, you know, I'm kind of looking out there, watching kind of Havana life go by. And all of a sudden, this young Cuban woman comes walking in, and she was just striking. She sits down in this chair, and I'm thinking, oh, wow, she's just really, you know, I was thinking about the layers. I'm so, oh, wow, she's just great. You know, so I shot a few frames, and then she picks up this fan, and, you know, it's backlit, it's a splash of color. And so the thing is, sometimes I find that, you know what, just sit down, put the camera down, and, you know, sometimes pictures just come to you. And so
yes,
that's pretty important for me to always remind myself. Same situation here. This was in Trinidad, Cuba, and I was photographing these little boys. So, you know, setting yourself up for success, going out when the light is great, you know, evening. And, you know, these little boys, they were great. They were playing stickball, and I was photographing them, but just kind of like sitting on the sidewalk on the other side of the street, and watching as things kind of unfold. And then it was like out of central casting, these 2 horses come like, you know, marching down the street with, you know, kind of bareback cowboys smoking cigarettes, and I'm just saying, oh, this is just great, and it's like, it's about serendipity and trusting that, I've talked about juxtaposition, and that's part of this, but really serendipity and kind of trusting it, and just sitting down and kind of like just watching, and sometimes things just appear.
Yeah, waiting for it to come to you. That can be used for sports, photography. I mean, so many things, so many things. And we're going to go to another image here, another layering image that, like I told you earlier, it just reminds me of like, when you work at the newspaper and they say, go find a feature, just find something pretty to go on the page. This seems like something like that. It's just absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, thanks. This is, not a real huge story on this one either. Just, putting myself out there at twilight when the light is great. This is Venice Beach in California. And, just playing with the tools I have at my disposal. And that's shutter speed. There were bikes and people going by. And like, how can we make our images as visually engaging as possible? First of all, going out when the light is beautiful. And, and then I have these layers happening, the people on the beach photographing and all, and then, the layers of the people going by. How can I make this even more interesting? And then start playing with the shutter speed and, that combination of motion and still and light and color.
Well, it's absolutely gorgeous, like I said. And this is another one of those waiting for it to come to you as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think a lot of it is about patience.
Yeah.
And, but we don't always have the time to do that, but I think when we do have it, I think time is, one of our greatest tools.
Definitely is. And that's so true with story, when you're working on stories or, just a single image like this or whatever it is the patience to wait for that and not rush it. And we're transitioning now to your pictures from 2020, which started you off at a Super Bowl and did not end as amazing as this. But yeah, we're going to go through some images here. Take us through this and how the year started. And, and one thing I do want to say is we've seen a lot of your work. You've got a picture in here of Huey Lewis coming up next, musical artist, one of his covers for his album. So you do a lot of different work and you're able to put your stamp on it. You're able to still shoot it the way you see it. And I think that's so important because a lot of photographers, or it's easy to get stuck, in one domain of photography, one area of photography. And, how can you shoot sports the same way that you shoot? Because people put sports photographers it's easy to put them in a box and it's just action, it's just peak action, tight, that old newspaper saying tight is right, just really compact, tight sports photography. But there's so much more to sports than that, as you well know. And I just love how you're able to weave in and out of different types of photography and storytelling and still be able to and have the same look and feel, which is so important.
Yeah, well, thanks. I think that for me, it's all about story. I want to be able to tell a story in an image. And I've really been drawn to color a lot. If you look at some of my early work, it was, really about black and white. But I'm drawn to storytelling and really drawn to color and drawn to looking around the edges to, find the surprise or the not obvious photo. So, Sports Illustrated, almost a year ago, it was February 3rd, sent me to, actually, sorry, it wasn't Sports Illustrated, it was ESPN. Sent me to Miami to photograph the Super Bowl. It was, great. So 2020 started off really great. Yeah, I don't think I ran into you there. I ran into you, Kevin, at the
National
Championship. That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. And that was in January of 2020. So I shot that and then this. But they send me there not because I'm like the best sports action.
Yeah.
Far from it. I can come up with images to tell the story of the game, sports action photos, but they send me because they know that I'll come back with a story, that I'm looking around the edges. So that's what I always try to do. And so this so this started off great. This was the beginning of the year. And then the next photo was another great thing that happened early in 2020, that I had photographed Huey Lewis, and the photo became his album cover. And, I was hoping that would happen when I photographed him, but you never know till it actually comes out. And he had come out with a new album called Weather. So the idea that I came up with, talking with his manager, was, photograph the weather in San Francisco. So, we were hoping that the fog would come in. You plan for success. It could go anyway, but it was really great being able to photograph him. He was, just like a long career in music. We all know so many of his songs. It was
Back to the Future.
Yes, that's right. That's
Amazing.
right.
Yeah.
Yes. So it was really great to be able to photograph him. And then that was a highlight, in early 2020. And then everything,
And then
everything changed.
was that the last thing was that the last, like one of the last things you did?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much in terms of like an assignment or a commission.
Yeah.
Did a couple things throughout the year, but not a lot.
Yeah.
So, first in the beginning of the pandemic, stay home for a couple months, thinking, okay, we don't know what this thing is. We don't know how to work in it. We don't know what's safe.
Sure.
As we're getting information, trying to figure out what we do, playing it safe, staying home. And, then by summertime, I started to think, okay, I need to work on some personal projects.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I just needed to get the creative juices flowing. I was kind of going crazy, not shooting. So, so a couple of things. First of all, I'm kind of a news junkie, and I subscribe to so many newspapers, you wouldn't believe it. I subscribe to a bunch of national, to the New York Times, the Washington Post. I subscribe to my hometown newspaper, the Boston Globe, the Cape Cod Times. I subscribe to all these local newspapers, the Marin IJ, the Santa Rosa Press Democrat, the Chronicle. I subscribe to the LA Times. It's ridiculous now that I think about it.
That is crazy.
How many of them? Do you get any like paper copies, or is it all digital?
It's all digital. It's all digital. Good question. No, it's all digital.
Okay.
So, that would be ridiculous if those.
I know.
So, so I'm really just always trying to stay on the pulse of what's happening, what's going on. And, there are a couple of things. One thing is I was looking in the local paper, and I saw that they were at the church, in one of the churches in my town, they were doing drive-up confession. And I thought, oh, that's pretty interesting. I need to go photograph that. Mm-hmm. So I reached out to the pastor, kind of like we talked about earlier. I just said, this is my website. I'm interested in what you're doing.
Yeah.
Would it be possible if I could come and photograph the drive up confession? And he said, sure, come on over. So I went out there, photographed that. But I always find it's important to ask questions. So I said to him, after I photographed the drive-through confession, I said, do you know of any other churches in the Bay Area that are doing anything interesting as a way to, continue supporting their parishioners during a pandemic? And he told me about this one church where they had taken photos, like selfies of all their parishioners, and they had taped them to the pews. And I said, oh, that sounds really interesting. I need to go see that. So I reached out to the pastor of that church and, asked if I could come out and photograph. And so I went out there and I photographed that. He was in this photo, there's a virtual service happening, and he went around and he was sprinkling holy water on the photographs of the people. So it was just fascinating, just like what people are doing to get through this pandemic. So then that has evolved into more of a story. It's an ongoing project. And, I've gone there and I've photographed a wedding, a very social distance, different kind of wedding. Same thing with a funeral and baptisms, like how they're doing this. And, and then I'm kind of looking at, what other religions are doing in terms of the pandemic. So that's kind of an ongoing project that I'm doing. Another thing I heard about is there is this urban cowgirl. And I heard that, when the protests were really in full gear in the summer, she showed up. Her name is Brianna Noble. She showed up at this protest in Oakland and rode through the protest in her horse.
Wow.
And, the protesters started following her. And before she knew it, she was leading the protest. And I thought, that is so interesting. Who is this woman? So I started researching her, and I found out that she has a nonprofit. What she does is she rescues horses. So she rescues horses that, have been retired or going to be put down or been injured, or someone just wants to get rid of them, and she rehabilitates them. And another thing she does is she uses these horses to train inner city children of color about horsemanship and about, just how to have confidence riding a horse and building those skills. So I thought she was just really inspirational person. And I thought that she represents a cultural story, at this moment of our, reckoning of our racial history. So it felt like it's something that represents where we are at this moment in time. And there's another thing that I think about when I'm doing a personal project like this, and it's the Venn diagram.
We all hate those.
You know about the Venn diagram, right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
VENN. So I started thinking about that and how it fits in with my photography. And it's like, so if you have 3 circles and they overlap, so I think about my 3 of my areas of interest. One of them is kind of women empowerment issues and stories. And another one is Western culture, is something I'm interested in. And another one is kind of social issues of our time. So these 3 things kind of overlapped and fit beautifully into this story about Brianna. So this is an ongoing project that I'm working on.
Do you have ideas about publishing, the end goal for this project and the previous one you talked about?
Yes, and then there's one more that I'll show you too. And yes, basically I start them as a personal project and they just evolve in different ways. And I'm at various stages of pitching them to publications, applying for grants to support these projects.
Oh, cool.
And I guess, those are probably the 2 main things that I'm kind of looking at with them: publication and funding support.
And you just keep shooting until someone says yes, right?
Yeah. Or till these wonderful people that let me into their lives say, okay.
That's enough. That is such a cool picture. I love this picture.
Yeah, that's great. We had another question that's been asked a couple of times. How do you position yourself to be able to get this variety of jobs? Usually you hear people say niche down on social media, but I'd love to be able to shoot many different subjects. And we touched on this earlier, right? How to have your personal touch and have the same look and feel no matter what you're shooting. So if you had any advice on that.
I think it comes down to, we have to figure out what it is that makes us tick. What is exciting to us, what we want to shoot, and go out and do personal projects on those stories. Reach out to organizations, nonprofits, foundations, publications that work in that realm. If like say the realm is Western culture, then I'm looking at I may be looking at like commercial clients, like Wrangler, and I may be looking at editorial clients like Equestrian Magazine. So I think it's a matter of finding the things that we each want to shoot and going towards that, because that's the work you just start putting out there, and editors see that, because I think that's how we can have the most satisfying careers, if we're photographing what we care about. If you're a portrait photographer, say you're a portrait photographer, but you love Western culture, then you do a series of portraits on cowboys.
Western, yeah, sure.
Like on cowboys or something, cowgirls, So I think it's just a matter of just trying to figure out what is exciting to you and try to go forward with that.
Yeah.
Like you and I were talking earlier about basically reverse engineering, how to get there, right? You say, okay, here's what I like, and here's where I want to work, or who, the people I want to work for. How do I get there? And one other thing I always preach is only show the work you want to get. If you want to get that kind of work, start showing it. And like you said, if you're a portrait photographer and wants to start doing Western culture, or you want to start shooting cakes, go do it. Make the portfolio and then get it in front of the people who make those decisions.
Exactly. And this is a good time to do something like that, to really, kind of reevaluate and figure out, what you want to do. And, and I'm always just like pushing myself to go out and work on projects I care about. And it's hard at times, sometimes it's like, it's hard to do it without it being an assignment. You have to be just but it helps if it's something you really care about.
And another thing I'll say real quick, I know we're kind of running out of time. We wanted to end this by 8:30, but it's going to go a few minutes over, but I don't think anyone's going to complain. Is that what I found is on personal projects, sometimes it's hard to put the same importance on it starting out, right? Like I've got this idea, I don't know if it's going to work. And it can be difficult. Like, if the New York Times is calling or Sports Illustrated, then it's like automatic, like the pressure's on, got to make the images, got to make something happen. And so sometimes for me, it's been like getting started on projects. It doesn't have the same, oomph to it in the beginning until it gets going. So you're right. It can be hard to get that ball rolling, get it started.
And, one thing leads to another, because sometimes I'll start a project and it's one thing, and then maybe the photography is going okay, but so many times it leads me to something else. And if I hadn't done the first part of it, it wouldn't have led me to the really good second part. It's just like kind of immersing yourself in the creative process and just, getting out there and just doing it.
Yeah.
And it can be hard, but it's so rewarding, and it always helps. But I just have this last one that I'll just talk about really quickly. And again, it's a personal project. I heard that, the local paper did something about, there was this starling murmuration, and it's like hundreds of thousands of starling birds come in and they roost in a certain location for 2 weeks and then they're gone. So they flew over this cemetery and roosted at this cemetery near where I live. And so I went out to photograph them. And so this picture is of the birds. What they do is they go into the sky and they make these incredible formations. And then it's like a tornado, they twist and turn and create another shape. And it was the most fascinating thing. But it also was so great, like watching how the community came out to watch them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And so the next image is, at this parking lot across from the cemetery, where people just came out because they had heard about the starling. So just documenting that side of the story. It was, the last day of the year and the first day of the new year. And it felt really hopeful, like, hey, nature is coming back. We're coming back. And people were just so excited. It was something they could do, social distancing. And it was like, 4th of July, they were out there on top of their cars. And yeah, it was pretty great. So anyway, that's what that story is.
No, that's awesome. And what a hopeful note to end 2020 on, right? You started out with a Super Bowl and ended somewhere way different. Of course, we all started out 2020 thinking it was going to be the whole thing a Super Bowl, and obviously it was not. So yeah, great work here. This has been incredible. Like I said, to put a career's worth of images career's worth of work into 17 images. This has been really nice. And I think there was one more question. Go ahead, Ray.
Let's see.
One question was from Ryan Fleischer. He said, when traveling, trying to lighten your load, what do you gravitate towards carrying? I guess he's talking about your actual gear, or maybe which think tank bag.
Which think tank product?
Well, okay, so So I shoot Nikon, and I'm really excited about the mirrorless. My kit is mainly the Z6 and the Z7 because I love traveling light. I love what they can do. I love, I can shoot video and stills, and really excited about those cameras, and they've become my real go-to cameras. I love prime lenses, and I do believe in traveling light. I used to carry a lot more equipment, but I'm all about just being able to move easily and not letting the equipment get in the way.
Yeah.
Sometimes, a lot of times I'll have one body with one lens and maybe a little hip bag with another lens or two, extra memory cards and batteries. Depending on the shoot, when I'm traveling, I always have my think tank rollers, the Airport International or the Airport Advantage or the Airport Security, depending on how much gear I have and depending on which aircraft I'm going on. But, I'm all about getting it off my back, and so it's on wheels. Sometimes when I'm out shooting, I might have a backpack. I love the shapeshifter that you use, Kevin and Ray. But it changes. Sometimes I'll have a shoulder bag, sometimes I'll have a hip bag, but I really try not to carry too much equipment. I just find that I don't need it. I can kind of. I prefer to be able to move around easier and not being burdened with too much equipment.
You always need less than you think. That's what I found.
Totally.
It's true.
Oh my God. I think I've broken my shoulder
Yeah.
from thinking I had to have every focal length from 16 to 200.
Exactly.
Exactly.
People need that.
I know. I think you can just grab a couple of your favorite lenses and just make them work with the situation.
That's why I love this like little Fuji with the fixed lens. I never, when I take it, I don't have to think. Like I'm like I'm forced to just shoot.
Right.
And not freak out and think, oh God, anyway, you're right. Lighter is so much better. Well, I think that just about does it, Deanne. This has been an amazing visual journey through your life and career. This is awesome. Thank you so much.
Dan. Really cool.
Yeah, for doing this. Kicking off 2021 right for ATL Photo Night. Okay, that rhymes.
You're setting the bar very high, Dan.
Oh, thank you. I am just scrolling through these messages in the chat room, and they're wonderful. Thank you, everybody.
Yes,
Big
thank you.
shout out to Think Tank. Appreciate it very much.
Yep.
We try our best, and we really appreciate everyone's support. Nikon, yeah. Thanks. Just lots of. What's that?
A couple Nikon fans in the audience, I think.
Yeah. Really nice, nice comments. I appreciate all the engagement here. And yeah, thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this. I mean, you have such a wonderful community there, and I'm a little obsessed with the creative process. I think about it a lot. I've got all these creativity books that, I should probably share them with you all. Need a little creative inspiration.
We should come up with a reading list for the website. You should submit those and we'll get that started.
Yes, definitely. I think that's a great idea. And I can definitely share some creative inspiration that I have. There's some books that I've been looking at that really help inspire me and help keep me on track.
Yeah, that can be tough. Like you said, it's so hard to navigate this, especially us being lone wolves and thinking that that we're all by ourselves. And that's what keeps us together on Photo Night here is, coming together even virtually to try to, cheer each other on.
Definitely. Well, I hope some of you have been inspired to go out and do some creative personal projects. We just have to figure out, okay, what can we safely shoot, during this time based on the protocols that are in place in, each of our counties where we are. But there are definitely things that you can do to just kind of keep the creative juices flowing.
Well, guys, we're going to call it a night. Stay tuned to ATL Photo Night to see our next speaker and what day and time that'll be. Same channel, though. But yeah, you have any closing thoughts or words of wisdom, Ray?
Just to thank you to everyone for coming. It's really, really a pleasure to see everyone's face again, or at least some kind of
Representation of them.
representation of it. Yeah, we really miss doing this, and we're going to keep doing it. Always the, or I should say, usually the last or third Thursday, 7 p.m. every month, and some other big things coming too. But yeah, February is going to be a great one as well. So just the best way to follow is through Instagram and Facebook, Twitter, things like that. So we'll do the same system probably. It worked really, really, really well actually.
Yeah.
So you know, registering that way. If anyone has any comments, please like let us know, and we're happy to talk to you guys in between. But otherwise, thank you again for coming, Deanne. Thank you so much again for sharing your story, your work. Hope you have a great rest of your afternoon and evening in California, and we'll see all of you again very soon, I hope. Okay.
Yep.